Before all that, though, it is time for the back pages. And I'm going to start this morning with the Irish Examiner front page of their sports section, and it is sitting pretty. Lethal Limerick add Munster title to All Ireland and league crowns, and Leinster's new kings. Davy delivers, Chin inspires, as Wexford claim first provincial title since 2004.
This morning's Irish Independent, they live with Wexford rising, and it's Davy's winning recipe smells like team spirit as medal men end 15-year wait for glory, and a picture of Wexford final match. Rory O'Connor celebrates with the Bob O'Keefe Cup.
The Irish Times sports section goes with Lee Chin and Davy Fitz celebrating together on the Croke Park pitch yesterday. Wexford reclaimed their place in the sun on a day of high emotion. Walker hits the goal standard for Ireland in Europe, writes Johnny Waterson. Kurt Walker winning goal for Ireland at the weekend in Minsk. And there's a tennis piece as well from Johnny Waterson. Djokovic primed for defence of his title, they say. World number one remains as hungry for success as ever after a stellar year as Wimbledon gets underway.
The Mirror Sport lead with exciting times. They thought he was mad, but Davy has the last laugh. I'm not sure that they don't think he's mad anymore. But obviously a huge part of yesterday's thing, I suppose that the whole day was about Davy Fitzgerald nearly in some ways, but it's an incredible victory, and I think Pat Nolan makes the point of where Wexford were when he took over the reins and what he brought them to, and it takes an awful lot of good and very hard work to bring them there.
Yeah, it certainly does. The back page of the Irish Daily Star goes with Purple Rain, Wexford Kings of Leinster, with Davy looking to go further, and Kiely says, "We are not copycats." He's blasted comparisons. Brian Cody's ruthless Kilkenny machine of the noughties after his Limerick side crushed Tipperary yesterday. This is something that is grinding John Kiely's gears. He says as much that it is something that annoys him a little bit. And Kurt Russell's up Euro goal. So this is the Lisburn bantamweight, as I mentioned. Kurt Walker, 24-year-old, securing goals in Minsk yesterday.
Herald Sport this morning leads with the story of Diarmuid Connolly. He's grounded. Connolly move hits visa trouble. It's the story that was kind of rumbling over the weekend that Diarmuid Connolly has had a technical issue with his ESTA, the visa you need to travel to America. He was due to fly to America on Thursday morning to play with Donegal Boston, who he won a Boston Senior Football Championship last year. And the ESTA was rejected. And I think in that sort of situation, you have to sort of go for an interview in the American embassy and sort it out. There's conflicting reports. One newspaper says that it's dead in the water, and there's quotes from the Boston chairman in the Mirror. There seems to be some suggestion that if he could get out there within the next 48 hours, he's still eligible to play for Donegal Boston. But whether the kind of red tape can be suitably reeled in the meantime, nobody seems to know. But it's a tough situation for Connolly to be in, because like if you're not going to play with your county, it's obviously a very nice thing to be able to do. Spend the summer in Boston playing football over there and everything that kind of comes with it. And I think once your sanction comes through from Croke Park, you're ineligible for your own club for 30 days. So
right, so you can't play Vince Insider.
So yeah, unless the sanction is somehow revoked. But again, I'm not au fait with the technicalities of that one. So
this thing isn't closed yet, is what you're saying, that there could be a window of opportunity
Yeah,
yet.
I think it might be a long shot, but I don't know for certain. As ever with Diarmuid Connolly, there's a million stories going around, but the story of Frank Roach has it there in the Herald and the Irish Independent as well. And a couple of other newspapers reported as well, but like the fact that he didn't get away on Thursday and that the move is at the very least in very severe jeopardy is on the money.
Yeah, there can be tricky things, those United States visas. There's of course like the statement. I'm not sure you have the Mirror there actually. Yeah. Just to go through what the statement actually is from the Donegal County Board Chairman in New York. So this is Pat Nolan's story on page 48 inside. He says, Diarmuid has a small problem with his ESTA, which Aer Lingus were notified of. The problem is only minor and will be hopefully fixed in the embassy this week. However, our deadline is tomorrow, and unfortunately Diarmuid won't make it over in time. Naturally, we're extremely disappointed because Diarmuid had a great impact in our club last year, both on and off the pitch. We've been made aware of the rumours going around about his being refused entry, but this was not the case. We hope this clears things up, and it does clear things up a little bit, because naturally there's tons of conjecture around it. So that's what Paul Martin McDade has said. He is the Donegal Boston GAA chairman. Also in Pat Nolan's piece, he says, having not played for the county since February of last year, Connolly was strongly linked to a return to the Dublin panel this year, but opted against it, despite holding talks with the team management. I'm not sure was that on the record before, that he actually sat down and spoke to the Dublin management. And although the Boston transfer has fallen through, it's still unlikely Connolly will figure for Dublin in the 2019 championship. So
it'll be some story.
It will be some story. I mean,
I think, I don't want to stoke this particular thing, but looking at the rules last night, he is ineligible for his club for the next 30 days, but he's not ineligible for his county.
It would be an amazing turn of fate if the ESTA failure was solely responsible for Dublin winning the 5 in a row.
Yeah, it sure would, but I don't know, like, it's a long way back, you know. I think
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen at this stage, but like, I think management were very, I don't know, it was hopeful, the wrong word, but they were certainly eager to have him back in up until the very last minute. But you know, it's a shame that he's not playing for Dublin. I think for a lot of people, would love to see him play for Dublin again, or love to see him play inter-county football. But for Connolly himself, if the move to Boston doesn't happen, it's obviously another shame.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to a couple of the UK back pages. The London Times goes with England restore fear factor. Fired up Bairstow hits century to set up win over India and puts hosts back on course for semi-finals. And US accused in World Cup spying row, says Molly Hudson in Lyon. England and the United States have become embroiled in a spying row before their Women's World Cup semi-final after 2 plainclothed members of American staff were spotted in a private area of the Lionesses' team hotel in Lyon yesterday. The FA is believed to be furious at the unwelcome intrusion from the US, who were scoping out the Fourvière Hotel as a potential base for Sunday's final. England, of course, are playing the US in Lyon tomorrow, and they were training at a different location 30 minutes from the hotel while the 2 Americans were being shown around by staff at their hotel. I wonder are those staff seen as traitors to the English team. They were not wearing any branded kit, as I've mentioned, and did not show their team credentials to security on their way in. Eventually, the pair were spotted by a member of the FA team. So Jill Ellis, who is the US coach, dismissed the idea that it was arrogant to be scouting a base for a final that her team may not even reach. To be fair, if you're talking about arrogance, this team is celebrating goals when they scored 10, 11, 12, 13 versus Thailand. So I think she should pretty much embrace the arrogance. I would assume everybody is doing that. She said, you have to plan ahead. The only 2 people who are thinking of planning ahead is my administrator, because she has to book all the flights and do all the stuff, and her boss. Everybody else, we don't worry about that, so that is probably why 2 people were there. So in terms of arrogance, that has nothing to do with us. That is planning and preparation for our staff. Phil Neville, meanwhile, says it's poor etiquette. It'll have no bearing on the game. I found it funny, says Phil Neville. So Spygate. It's no Jim McGuinness person up a tree, or it's not really a Leeds United worker with binoculars in the bushes, but still a good one. Nothing better than Spygate.
No. The Sun Sport go with clean sweep. The story of Limerick being, I suppose we didn't even mention it, but it nearly goes without saying that they're League, All-Ireland and Munster champions, which, like, I mean, as a body of work is really incredible. And there's a couple of other interesting bits here. Graham Geraghty's column inside, Cian O'Neill's time as the Kildare team manager is up, which is a question we put to Cian O'Neill on Saturday night in Newcastle.
Yeah, you were there, of course.
What happens next? And like all managers in that situation, you know, I suppose you're not thinking that it's going to end that night, so it's probably not the best place to announce it, but it did have the feeling of an end. But I just want to point out that the Sun's GA supplement, The Game, their headline inside is Wex and the Gritty, which I think is quite
top of the morning to you.
Tabloid headline.
Back page of the Racing Post is centre of attention. Defending champion odds on to ease through All England opener, and rejuvenated England 2-7 for semi-final spot. The front page then smiles ahead to Tory the man yet again as he secures Group 1 glory in France with Cornet.
And I have The Guardian, and the lead with fire in his belly. Owen Morgan, he held the fire in Johnny Barstow's belly after the opener's bristling century helped England sweep aside India and put their World Cup campaign back on track. And I'll have to take The Guardian's word for that.
Final paper then, the Daily Telegraph goes with England alive and kicking, Bairstow's brilliant century and Wokes' stunning catch put Morgan's men back on course for semi-finals. We are going to get Liam Griffin in a few moments' time. We do want to focus on a couple of the football stories for now, and we do have Liam McHale coming up on analysis later on, but you spotted some interesting quotes from Kieran McGeeney in the aftermath.
The match of the weekend, football-wise, was definitely in Castlebar on Saturday night. Yeah. I was in Newbridge, but I got home to see the last half an hour, and then I kind of rewound it because the last half hour was so good to watch the game. And it was a brilliant game, and I felt sorry for Armagh because they're an interesting team. Like, I think, like a lot of people, I'm kind of fascinated by Kieran McGeeney and what it is he brings to that role. And he's been there a long time without bringing them very far, but there was just a feeling this year with the emergence of Jarly O'Burns and Rhys O'Neill and Jamar Hall, that they had something about them. But on Saturday night, they reeled Mayo in a couple of times, and they had a couple of really good goal chances as well. There was a couple of great saves by David Clark. But you always just got the feeling that at home in particular, despite who they were missing, the Mayo were just going to be a little bit too kind of crafty to see it out. But Kieran McGeeney had a bit of a moan afterwards, and he said there were at least 10 head injuries in that second half, and nobody was taken off. It's very hard to take. We've played in games this year with 6 or 7 minutes injury time with no head injuries, and it was just interesting because on Saturday Eamon Fitzmaurice did a very interesting column about Mayo in the Irish Examiner. And he spoke about how good they are when it comes to gamesmanship, whatever way you want to phrase that particular sentence. But he told a very funny story of a league game there a couple of years ago where Kerry were ahead, but they'd only 13 men on the pitch. And as he was watching the game and Mayo had a free, Barry John Keane ran down from the stand and tipped him on the shoulder. And he pointed out that Diarmuid Connolly was actually hiding behind one of the cameras that were there to the match. So he got Jack Barry's attention, and he started pointing back at Jack Barry to go and mark his man. And Jack Barry turned around and saw a television camera, and he thought Fitzmaurice was losing his mind. But then just as I think O'Connor was about to pop out from behind the camera and make his run, Jack Barry spotted him and he went back to cover it. But one of the things that Eamon Fitzmaurice pointed out was Mayo and their physicality, how they target opposition players. But one of the things he said was their cynical exploitation of the head injury rule while they're ahead in games. And that column appeared on the morning that Kieran McGeeney his team lost to Mayo. And in truth, for all Armagh's sort of their endeavour and the way they play the game, because they're a good team to watch, you got the feeling that Mayo might just have a bit too much street smarts for them, and I think that's nearly Kieran McGeeney admitting as much this morning. What is the deal with the head injury? Just I have Fitzmaurice's column from the Examiner on Saturday in front of me. He says in relation to Lee Keegan in 2017 in the GPS, he says to have the creativity and now, Stephen, think of that, was remarkable. The checking off the ball, their game management late in games, the claustrophobic marking of key opposition players, the tactical use of the Mayor Forna. I think all of this sort of stuff we understand, and the cynical exploitation of the head injury rule when ahead in games were further indicators of this gamesmanship as they pushed everyone and everything in their desperation to get to the promised land. What are the specific examples here? Well, no, I think it's simply like if there's a collision and my team are ahead, the referee doesn't have to stop the game. Yeah, sure. If it's a head injury, he has to stop. I think the point that Kieran McGeeney's making here, and maybe the unsaid bit in Eamon Fitzmaurice, is when referees stop game for head injuries, they're still only going to put 3, maybe 4 minutes of injury time at the end of it. So if you have, I assume that Kieran McGeeney says there was at least 10 head injuries in the second half. Now I assume he was just exaggerating to prove his point, but maybe there were. But if you have 10 head injuries, the referee's not going to add 10 minutes of injury time. Sure. So I think it's basically just another form of time wasting is what they're both hinting at here. Is that a reason why Mayo got so close to Dublin in recent years? They're the only team who are not able to go with them fitness wise and in large part skill wise, but they're also able to match them in the cynical stakes. Probably, but I that's probably 5% of what they're doing. Sure, but it's an important 5%. Yeah, he mentions marginal gains. But I think the biggest point that he makes in that was that the physical transformation with the team between 12 and 13, I think he said. And if you look at Dublin, I'd love to get a statistic for Dublin for how much they've beaten teams over the last 5 years in the last 15, 20 minutes of matches. That's when they crucify teams. They make games that are kind of close into massacres. That doesn't happen to Mayo because physically they're absolutely able for Dublin in terms of lasting with them, but also in terms of they can play the game that Dublin are vulnerable to, as in going man to man, because in terms of physical strength they know they're going to win as many collisions as they lose. So it's a part of it, but I don't think it's as a significant part. But Eamon Fitzmaurice makes the point, and I think Kieran Donaghy made the point last year. He said they'd taken it to a new level. So it's interesting because the dark arts, as we euphemistically call it in GAA, we can see examples of it, but there seems to be almost a code of, players never come out and say, well, they were sledging or they were time wasting or whatever it is. There's kind of an acceptance that it goes on and that every team does it. But it's interesting just to hear that somebody from the inside and as recently relevant as Eamon Fitzmaurice is actually illustrate what it actually all pertains to. Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, you look at that, you look at what Mayo did on Saturday night, it's very easy to make a case against them this year, but there was just something
something about the way they managed to get through last night that is so reminiscent of what happened in 2017. All the evidence suggests that there is no way in hell that a squad that is as depleted when it comes to injuries should be able to go on the road again. But the fact of the matter is, if they win next week, and this morning's qualifier draw is absolutely vital for Mayo Summer. Huge. It's huge for everyone, really. It is the biggest draw of the summer. If they manage to get their way into the Super 8s, there's one team you don't want coming to your home ground in that first round of the Super 8s, because Mayo will be the away team, and it is Mayo, because they'll be so battle hardened, they'll be road tested, they'll come flying to that first game. They might peter out during the rest of the Super 8s because they'll be so wrecked, but the thing is, they'll come flying into it.
Yeah, I still think Tyrone are the best of the 4 teams that played over the weekend, or the 4 teams that won over the weekend. They played on Saturday night against Kildare, and they kind of... Mickey Hart kind of argued the toss with us afterwards that they'd reverted to type from the system that got them so much praise when they beat Dublin in the league, and so much scorn when they were hammered by Donegal in the Ulster semi-final. But they set up in such a way that they only played with Cathal McShane inside, and Matty Donnelly played much deeper. So they didn't play with the 2 guys inside and kick long ball. They actually kicked no ball all day long, except for little pop passes in front of McShane. But the point that my Hart made afterwards is, it's not a case of, okay, Tyrone have to change their style. It's that Tyrone have to be able to play in a different way, so as that they're versatile and unpredictable. And that's probably the biggest black mark against Hart in the last couple of years, that when they went in to play Dublin, they did exactly what Dublin expected them to do. And if you do that, they're just going to kill you. And Saturday night, they were so impressive. Like, they just... there's a couple of statistics that stood out. Tyrone scored 217 from play, which is a huge statistic, and it's as damning on Kildare as it is sort of impressive by Tyrone. The second thing is, Kildare's starting 6 forwards only scored 2 points from play, which like there was a couple of heroic performances from their midfielders, Fergal Conway and Kevin Feely, but even their points were kind of, magic scores under pressure outside of the boot, 40 yards. So the simple act of working the ball into the forwards and taking a score, they couldn't do it because Tyrone defended in such a way. Like, they look like they're so kind of composed in that system. Nobody gets sucked into making a tackle. They maintain the same distance from each other, and it's up to you. Like, you can throw the ball around 70 yards out from goal, but like sooner or later you're going to get a bit of an itch to have a go here, and when you do, they're just going to turn you over every time. And I thought they were really, really impressive, and we all assumed that Tyrone were out of the All-Ireland picture because of what Donegal did to them in the All-Ireland semi-final, but I think they're actually more dangerous now because they've developed a different way of playing, and if they can switch between it in games, I still think they're incredibly dangerous. I think more than Mayo, Tyrone are the team to avoid this morning for the 4 teams who lost their provincial finals. Right,
okay. We will have instant reaction to that draw when it takes place shortly after 8:30 this morning. One last story I want to bring you. It's because Rafa Benitez has released a statement to Newcastle fans. He says, "Dear Newcastle United fans, thank you for 3 fantastic, exciting and at times challenging years. What we've had here, your support, your affection and your passion has been unbelievable for me. St James's Park has been always a special. The 5-1 win against Tottenham, 15th of the 5th, 2016, was, who puts that in the middle of a statement, was so emotional that since that day I've always felt as though I belonged at Newcastle, and I thank you for making me feel so welcome and at home. Thank you to everyone at the club who has helped the team, and of course to the fine players who grew and fought with us, and to the staff, one of the best I've ever shared time with. From winning the championship to our 2 seasons in the Premier League, fans, staff and players have all been united. I wanted to stay, but I didn't just want to sign an extended contract. I wanted to be part of a project. Unfortunately, it became increasingly clear to me that those at the top of the club did not share the same vision. I'm very sad about that, but I do not regret for one moment my decision to come to Tyneside, and I'm very proud about what we achieved together. I will always have you in my heart. Best of luck for the future. Come on, Toons." So that probably sheds a bit of light on his departure from Newcastle United, that he wanted a bit more of a long-term thing, and they saw him as a solution for the next couple of years.